Steve Kelly. I'm a CEO and one of the founders of a company called Arganteal. And what we're about is automating DevOps automation. That's supposed to confuse you a bit. What we do is we glue together all the existing tools and allow you to mix different languages in a DevOps environment. Next slide. So what is DevOps, just to make sure you know? It's the process of getting application changes implemented in production. Click an example of that. Bill, please. An example of that. Click. An example of that is when the banks are trying to get the pandemic loan applications up nationally. Getting it to work in a lab is one thing. Getting it across the country is another. Build, please. So this basic software activity is common to almost every industry segment. We're working with the military through the Air Force, and we're working with several enterprises, but it really applies to anyone deploying software. Next. Gartner looks at this industry this way. The dev side of DevOps is getting pretty well organized because of agile techniques. The ops side of DevOps is not that well organized and still kind of scrambling around. Click. They estimate it to be about a $6 billion very active market. Click. One example of what Arganteal did for the Air Force in that space is they needed to deploy 2 applications on any hybrid combination of AWS and Azure with no prerequisites. Next. That took 20 days of original scripting, but worse than that, if you wanted to customize the original script to do one certain deploy, that took at least a day of work all by itself. Click. Arganteal, however, was able to compile and deploy any combination of AWS and Azure from that original scripting in less than 10 minutes. That's a pretty big advantage. It saves a lot of time. Click. And time is important here because these are typically $200 an hour resources. Next. We've done some project for enterprises, one for HP, where we took an 8-hour task and did it in 40 minutes. One for a Microsoft partner, where we took a 38-hour task and did it in 3 hours. Those are kind of 90% savings. And then finally, something that Dimension Data had done a number of times, and it had taken at least 200 hours, we were able to do in an 8-hour unattended overnight run. And you might notice this applies to applications or infrastructure or both. Next. How do we do that? We have a patented compiler that you feed with the libraries. The libraries can come from anywhere, but they generally come from the people that are doing the work. Once you have the libraries perfected, click. You supply only a high-level workflow and the data for the project, and click. It outputs the automated orchestrated deployment execution script that you can take and run. So custom libraries that can be private, public, or classified inform the patented compiler. And where do you get the libraries? Well, you start with the scripts you already have, and we process them. Next. So we automate DevOps orchestration, not just store, retrieve, and rewrite scripts, which is what the industry typically does. Next slide. What does Gartner say about this? We've talked with them quite a bit. They have not seen anything like it. Because of the way it worked, it's differentiated against all the incumbents. And why? Because you start with the script you already have, and that will resonate with engineers. They hate learning new languages. And everyone talks one way or another about starting over from scratch. Next. The benefits to the user is, the first one is the same. You start with scripts you already have. But our approach lets you automate everything. And so the libraries capture the tribal detail that tends to walk around in people's heads. And when they leave, you lose that tribal knowledge, but not if it's coded into the library. It also helps you organize a DevOps team because your smartest guys work on the libraries and your next level of engineers uses them, and it gives you a way to manage a large team. Beyond that, it obviously eliminates human error, and it clearly is a productivity tool, as we showed, 90% reduction in time in a lot of cases. Next.
30-second warning, Steve.
Okay, here's a screenshot of the product. We'd be happy to demo it for anyone that wants to see it. That's enough for now. Next. Our active accounts are the Air Force, and we're currently doing a project to automate Active Directory deployment. They have brought us people they want to use our technology for, Intelligent Wave and Intuitex. Our biggest enterprise partner is Worldwide Technologies, and we recently signed an agreement to be the installation partner for Polyverse. Our revenue for profit will be about 3 million this year, so we're still pretty small. That's at a 15% profit, and our paying customers right now are the Air Force and Worldwide Technology. Where are we going next? We want to introduce our SaaS version of the product this quarter. Obviously, that will generate more users and more case studies. We'd like to recruit a lead investor and prepare for a Series A in 2022, somewhere around the idea that $2 a share would generate a $20 million valuation. Next, that's Arganteal. That's what we mean by automating DevOps automation. If you'd like to know more, please contact me, and I would love to take your questions.
Wonderful.
Hello, sir.
Go ahead,
Josh, do you mind if I just dive in?
Jump in.
Hey, thank you very much. This really stuck out to me because I'm working right now to conduct requirements engineering and all the operations associated with bringing half a dozen satellites into launch. So as you can imagine, it's a very complex operation. Most of our requirements engineering and systems engineering is performed by SAIC and Gartner. So as a Space Force guy, you know, hearing you mention Gartner is very heartwarming. Now, is there any way that you could get Gartner to help push this product? Because for me, I don't even have to take this to my PEO. I don't have to walk this down the hall. If you can get somebody like them to come alongside and say, this is a very good path forward. And it could actually move fairly quickly if you do that.
I think if you ask Gartner to talk about us, they are absolutely prepared, and you and I could get together and organize something. That's doable. I mean, we're a paying Gartner client. That's an important step.
Yeah, that always helps. I am too.
Chris Saunderson, if you happen to know him, would be a good guy to reach out to.
He's in Colorado Springs, isn't he?
You know, I don't know.
Okay. Yeah, I think I know him already.
Okay, cool. So you have a good synergy right there. Let's open up the question for Kenny, aside from Google.
Yes, Steve, thanks for the presentation. You had healthcare as one of the verticals in one of your earlier slides. Have you had any traction with the healthcare industry? Any use cases?
We do not have a healthcare use case yet, but I know because of the nature of the software that it belongs in that space. Remember, right at the moment, we're just pre-product because we've used the Air Force to develop all the ease of use tools so that someone else can use our compiler, and that's where we're at right now.
Okay, yeah, I'll be interested in exploring that further.
Cool.
Thank you.
Go ahead with Josh.
Hi, Steve. Question for you about whether your DevOps platform can accommodate ML workloads, or I've heard there are a few ML ops platforms you've looked at which claim that the traditional DevOps platform cannot necessarily handle an ML workload because of the constant need to change the code or retrain the software.
Is ML a scripting language?
No, this is machine learning.
Machine
learning and AI. Okay.
We use machine learning to sort out all the scripts, but whether it would apply in that specific instance, I'd have to get you together with my head of development. Happy to do that.
Okay.
And he knows machine learning and AI pretty well. Okay.
I'm sure this is a fairly large use case outside of the smaller subset of ML specific applications, but just curious to understand how.
Well, I'm the one thing I'm sure of is if you're deploying software that does ML, we don't do ML, we deploy it. It will do that.
Correct. Okay.
Yeah, real quick, do you happen to know of a scripting language you use, like Python, Terraform?
I'm not sure about the specific ML language that's used for for neural network training, but I know there are use cases within my company that that use both ML traditional and then deep learning or neural network training as well.
So I will bet you that it will work in your application, but I'm not sure.
Okay. I'll be sure to mention your company to the right people and see if they have any interest in following up.